Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. Well, I'm here today in our offices in London, and unusually I've got one of our guests who's actually in London from New York. That's Tim Attia. Tim is the CEO and co-founder at Slice. Tim, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming over to London, and obviously you out here on business and also meeting some of your team at your London office. But for those who don't know what Slice is, tell us a little bit about what the company does and how you founded the business.
Sure. Slice is an early stage tech startup. We're about 3.5 years old, coming up on 4 years old. We focus on on-demand insurance for the new economy. So when we founded, we thought there's two things we wanted to do. One is to think about a new way of doing insurance. We thought insurance should have the same experience as tap on a button and Uber shows up, tap on a button and you have insurance. We want to match the experience of the on-demand economy, but we also wanted to focus on the risks that were created by this new economy where you're a person 1 second and your business the next second.
Fantastic. And you've got offices, as we just said, in London. You've got a team here. Your head office is in New York, Ottawa, and Toronto.
That's
and
correct.
Cleveland as well.
Yes.
And obviously, I think the press release yesterday you mentioned soon to be in Singapore. When's that launching?
We just put out a press release that we're partnering with Sompo, a large insurer out of Japan in the region. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, we're opening an office for that and other opportunities in the region in Singapore. So we're in the process right now of looking for our country manager for Singapore.
And why is this? How has this market become about? And why is it taking so long for companies to develop this sort of transformation in this area?
Sure. I mean, the insurance industry, and we're sitting close to the birth of the insurance industry, has been around for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
serves a very important purpose of protecting people and protecting against risks. But I think a lot of these things have changed over the years. I think that the nature of risks, like cyber risks as an example, we have a cyber product has changed, and also the nature of what's happening and the way people work today. In the insurance industry, you're a person or you're a business, and today you turn left if you're a business and you enter the front door, you turn right if you're a person, and those lines are blurring today. And so as a result, there's a lot of protection gaps. Insurers didn't imagine cars driving themselves around and people sharing their houses or sharing their cars, and so it's putting a new set of risks that's very difficult for new insurers, and especially since they typically look at things at, I need to have 10 years of history so I know how to underwrite it. Mm-hmm. And in the new world, we want to look at real-time signals and events. If I know it's raining, then I know I need an umbrella, so I can look at we have a lot more data now, and a lot more data that's current, so I can base the risk on more real-time things.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Yeah.
And is there many differences that you've seen from perhaps the European compliance and appetite for risk than the US market?
We came to the UK fairly early, and we're 3.5 years old. I think a year in, we started the process here and hired our first person, and we'd heard a lot of anecdotes around. We knew what it was like in the US. You have to go through 50 different regulators, one different regulator in every state, and everybody talks about how hard that is. Mm-hmm. And there are different regulations here, and we wanted to see if what we were doing was portable. Because if you're an Airbnb host, Airbnb is in 191 countries. It really doesn't help us if we can only handle people in the US or in Canada. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to see if we could scale this. We didn't want it to take us we wanted to see if it was going to take us 191 years to get to 191 countries. So we came here early. We came with the idea that it wouldn't be that hard to come into the UK market. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say it's hard. It's just it's a regulated environment, mm-hmm. and there's time to go through regulation and approval and so forth. So I think we have a good idea right now, and the more you learn, the more of an advantage you have over other people. Yeah.
Now you've got, as I said earlier, about 80 people. You're growing very quickly. Yeah. What does a typical day in the business now look like for you?
I think we're a small company. I think a year ago we set our first strategic planning. 2.5 years in, we say we should sit down and actually plan something, and we modified a framework that a lot of tech companies like Google use, which are objective and key resources, and we added in indicators, and we said here's the 4 objectives or 5 objectives that we're going after. And so I think I would spend about a third of my day just focused on those, like the 4 or 5 key objectives that we're trying to get to. So I spend like a third of the day on that. A third of the day, though, for a startup is focused on just things you didn't know was coming, right? So just reacting to, an issue with a regulator that you didn't know was going to come, or an issue in the market, or an issue with a customer. And so about a third of the day is probably spent, dealing with things that you didn't know was coming.
Yeah. And as the business grows, of course, now across the globe, you're going to have to work across a few different time zones.
Yeah, time zones is a big challenge. It already is, because we've been, we have investors. Our board meetings are interesting already. We have to hold them to handle East Coast, California, the Valley, and Hong Kong. And so
that's not easy.
Yeah, so already it's a challenge. And all 3 co-founders, when we started in 3 different cities. We were 3 employees in 3 different places, and that's also unusual. So there's a disadvantage to that, but there's a huge advantage to being able to figure out how to work in that environment, because it really kind of proves your company is scalable. In a previous life, we had a company, when we went from 1 floor to 2 floors, it broke. We're not going to break on going from 1 to 2 floors.
Who's inspired you as a leader? Who's perhaps been a mentor to you on your journey, and how have they helped you?
Yeah, I would say that probably was my second boss out of school. I studied electrical engineering in Montreal, and I would say that, like a lot of people when you're in school, I would have assumed I didn't think I was going to work the amount of. I was going to put in the amount of work I was going to put in through my 20s. If you would have asked me early on if I was going to do what I did, I would have said there's no way. So I think it was my second boss when I went into consulting. I didn't know what consulting was, and I went in. Had a lot of opportunity to shape me in terms of giving me discipline that I didn't have. Focusing on things like quality that I didn't even think about, and customer focus that I didn't think about, and actually took. They give you they have an opportunity to give you your and we see that in our company with young engineers coming in, or young people coming into anywhere in the company. You have an opportunity to shape them, and there's a lot of impact in those first years. And I would say a lot of it, unfortunately, gets undone over time. So I think it was that, I think the second boss I had that basically taught me everything I know. Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing business leaders in today's market?
I think, when I talk to my co-founders, we always talk about how hard everything is. Like, nothing is easy. We're like, there's absolutely nothing that's easy, and every little thing looks a lot harder than it was, than you thought it was going to be. And I think it's because things are just a lot more complicated now. It's a lot more complex. You can't sit down and say for certain who your competitors are, because today, even if you look at insurance, it's one day it's coming from an insurance company, the next day Uber's offering insurance. So where's the insurance coming from? Is it going to come out of Amazon or the ecosystem? Who are your real competitors? Who are your partners? And so I think the complexity is very, very difficult to deal with. And the challenge is, at any given time, we have no idea whether we're making the right decision. And more, we're really concerned that we're not making the right decision. So we just don't, it's just so complex, and it's just getting more and more complicated. Nothing is simple anymore.
How do you keep your team engaged from the top?
I spend most of my time engaging with my direct reports, with the team. I engage with them. We engage a lot. We try to do as much. We're distributed. We try to do as much face-to-face as possible. We're addicted to Slack. We're constantly communicating. So I spend a lot of time. That other third of the day I spend really with. And I don't have a lot of direct reports. The whole team's maybe 5 or 6 of us, and I spend a lot of time with that team. And I try to. That's where I expect them. So I'm very engaged with them, and I expect them to be as engaged with the next level down. And we kind of expect it to fan out that way. That's the expectation. And when you're distributed, there's a challenge that you're going to drift. One of my co-founders I went to university with, those roommates after school, and we've had every job except for one. The other one, Ernie, we've been together for 18 years, so we're not going to drift a lot because I know they're going to make the same decision I'm going to make. But my expectation is I'm going to keep them engaged, and they're going to keep their people engaged. That's how I do it.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
There's a couple of them. I think probably it's going to sound a little negative, but probably maintain a skeptical posture. Always be a critical thinker. I think that's probably the best advice. I've still maintained today in all cases. I'm always trying to maintain a skeptical posture. I'm trying to sleep on things before making a decision. Always questioning things. So I think that's probably maintaining, and I learned that early in the career, to sort of maintain a skeptical posture on everything I hear about. I think that's the biggest one. Down from that, I think, and it was that boss that I had that said, wait 7 days. Any crisis, wait 7 days, and it'll be okay. Always helps, because you always forget in the middle of a crisis that there's going to be an end. So that's an interesting one as well.
Now, you said earlier about things that are challenging in the industry, about complexity.
Yeah.
Now and the fast pace.
Yeah.
But what really excites you about it in the moment?
I think there's an opportunity to. There's some fundamental. Right from the beginning, I've always been a big fan of probability and prediction and product probability, all the way back to engineering, all the way through. I've always loved probability. One of the first books, I think it's called The History of Risk, was about the risk management and how it came about. I've always been fascinated about that, and I think for the first time in the industry, we have an opportunity to predict things like losses and to move towards protection. And there are some huge gaps. You can close your eyes and throw a dart, and there's going to be a gap in protection anywhere in the world, and a big gap. We're actually protecting less than. There's probably more unprotected than there is protected. So I think the opportunity to actually be able to predict a loss and mitigate that loss before it happens, I think, is an area that I find fascinating, and I think it's a global problem. Yeah.
What's the way in which you help your employees improve their well-being?
Yeah, like anything else, including, in my view, including things like culture, I think it's what I do myself when nobody's watching. And so I think the best thing I do is what I'm going to do next week. I'm going to take the week off, and I'm going to unplug, and I'm not going to have I'm not going to take calls. I'm not going to get on things when our CTO was off in Berlin a week ago on vacation. No, I didn't bother him.
Right.
I think if I act the right way, that'll send the right message, and I think that's what I try to do. I try to, when nobody's looking, act the right way.
And that's great. That tells people that that's an acceptable way to behave, to switch off.
Exactly.
Which we all need.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a story perhaps that you got from your childhood that may have influenced your work ethic later on in life that you could share?
The jobs that you have early on. I mean, I think I definitely had a stint at Baskin-Robbins scooping ice cream, but I remember even earlier than that working probably as like a busboy or a short order cook in a restaurant, and having to work and being really bummed that I had to work New Year's Eve, right? And New Year's Eve is crazy. Everybody's having a party. The restaurant's open till 1 or 2 in the morning, and you have to clean up for an hour or two after that. And I think that taught me that, you just go heads down and you go one step at a time, and you'll get to the end. And I think those types of things were, and having to deal with people, like having to, be in a restaurant or even an ice cream place, and having to deal with people is invaluable, because I think, especially in the tech industry, there's a lot of really strong technology people, but there's sometimes a lack of being able to deal with people, and that's a skill that is key, right? Being able to interact and deal with people. Yeah.
Now, earlier you said about the different competitors, or the landscape is changing all the time. I'm just wondering what you think your industry is going to look like in 5 years' time, and how that may impact your business model.
Yeah, I think insurance I think insurance as an industry is going to sort of be washed into a lot of things. Nobody wants to buy insurance. It's going to be hard to make it a lot of people are trying to make it a financial services a better customer experience, but I don't think we're going to get people lining up at the mall to buy insurance like they would on iPhone. So I think it's going to be critical for insurance to be embedded into something that is important in people's lives. So people are, whether or not, things like I'm buying an iPhone or I'm buying a Tesla, to I'm going on a vacation, to I'm going off to college, or I'm going to a music festival and I'm protected. And it's sort of just part of an experience that somebody cares about. I think that's gonna be critical, but actually implies that the insurance industry might disappear. It might become part of the mobility industry and part of the travel leisure and part of it'll be a part of other industries. And I think that's where things are going. I think insurance is just going to be, right now, if you're an Uber driver, you sign up for Uber and you're covered. You didn't have to fill out an application. They're not denying you. They're not asking you, a million questions. You register and you want to work because you make money to make rent, and it's included in, for the time that you're driving, it's included in. And I think that's where it's going. And I think the industry hasn't realized it, right? So it's sort of Uber's offering, and these companies, Airbnb, are offering free insurance to anybody, no matter who you are, just by registering. If you got in front of a room of insurance execs and say, hey, how many people think it's a good idea to give away free motor insurance to everybody, regardless of, how they drive, what kind of car they have, all those 100 questions they ask, they'd sort of lose their minds. But it's happening already, and they haven't noticed that it's happening. But I think that's where it's going. I think insurance is going to be more embedded into people's lives, not what people own. It'll be more about you and not, I own a house, I own a car, I think that's where it's going to go.
That's a great point. And I'm thinking about going into a shop, as you say, and buying a mobile phone.
Yeah.
You want that to be a seamless experience and a great user experience.
Sure.
You
lose your phone while you're traveling, and I've done it a few times, and it's traumatic. So somebody should help you protect against that, right? Yeah. If you had your time again, and you were giving your 20-year-old self advice, what's the one thing that you'd say to yourself? I think I'd have to be careful here, but I think it would be to have done things a little bit sooner. So I remember when I was in consulting, and I was in it for 12 years or 13 years, and it had grown fast. And Stuart and I wanted to start a company we started before. I did the whole, wait to replace myself and make sure, everything's okay, and, much more cautious approach. I think you don't want to, you want to be a little bit cautious because you don't want to jump in and be an entrepreneur when you don't really know anything yet, I think. You have to have some experience, I think. But you also don't want to wait too long. I think I would have started it earlier. I think I would have gotten into, I would have still spent as much time learning because it was too invaluable what we learned. And without it, I'm not sure I would have been able to do it. But I think I would have done it a little bit sooner. I would have said, look, maybe a decade earlier, maybe you should have got going. Because, the great ideas were there. You probably were good enough to execute, take a little bit more risk.
Tim, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah.
I know you've been super busy with your customers, so I'm really grateful for taking a few minutes to come in and see me. If people want to find out more about you, they want to get in touch with you, reach out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
They can reach me on LinkedIn, Tim Attia Slice, or at slice.is. They can go there and reach out to us.
Go check it out. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please take a moment to give us a review. 4 stars would be good, but 5 stars would be amazing.